You know, as unique as this foam and paper and tape hill amalgamations I've made on this layout are, they're kind of getting boring, a little old. Like, let's be honest, is it good to have a bit of elevation, a bit of texture? Yes, but I'd kind of like to not look at advertisements every time I look at the layout. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to announce today we are back with quite a bit of an update. There's a lot to go through today. So given the current state that we're at, what exactly do you do now? What's next? Well, in this case, we're finally gonna finish that landscaping, or by that I mean introduce the plaster cloth and just a lot of different types of plaster to get the overall texture and look we want. But skip all that. First things first, plaster cloth. And the first thing we're doing here, as you can see, is using one singular pack from Woodland Scenics. As you probably expect, it does not get me very far. I think I get most of the mountain or the initial mine area, but that's really it. But thankfully, this all kind of worked out. It just so happens you can get a lot of plaster cloth if you get the medical stuff in bulk on Amazon for pretty cheap. I think I got 12 rolls for $14. And while the rolls themselves weren't very big and we did manage to use every single one we had, it still came out pretty decently. Like, truth be told, it worked just as good as the Woodland Scenic stuff and was a fraction of the price. But like I said, as you can see here, that's pretty much the major part we're doing now. The more important or main goal is to get the mine and larger structures like the ridge and different things on the side. And if I can or had the extra plaster cloth, would fill in the track area just to, give that a bit of texture too, so it would help save time later. And thankfully, like I said before, there was enough to cover the entire layout and then some, front and back. It's very important to me I get both sides since eventually I want this layout to be something I can walk around, so the other side needs to be detailed too. So it's not really just me focusing on the front area, it's the front and back. You may not see it a lot or as much, but at least we know it's there, and eventually I hope that changes. Now, plaster cloth as is a pretty neat substance. It does help make things a bit more structurally integral and, overall landscapes, but it does come at the cost of being cloth, and that's often something you can see. So how do you get around that and stop that overall netting look that you find on parts of the layout? Well, what I did was take the little plaster I had left and some Mod Podge, mixed that with some water, and kind of just made a terrain paste and stuck that wherever I thought was necessary. Now, truth be told, my concoction really wasn't the best. This was my first time ever attempting this, so it was pretty runny, very liquidy and solidified very slowly. But it did help, get rid of a lot of those netted areas. And I don't know, it just made the overall shaping very, very simple. I'd also go out to my backyard and garden and just start finding very small rocks and just slipping them in certain areas I thought they would work. Now, sadly, in the end, I'll need much, much more than this, but that's something that'll come at a later stage with later detailing. And following this came the most essential part of this entire process: cinnamon rolls. Yeah, I was hungry. That was a lot of work. I deserved this. And with that, we now move on to what could be, or kind of what is, the most scary part, but also one of the more fun parts. And that is painting. Yes, we're going to prime this entire board, and that is why I've put up this tarp, as you can see here. There's also one under the table, just to make sure the floor doesn't get messed up in this process. Now, whenever I spray paint, I try to take whatever I'm, spray painting outside, because you're really not supposed to breathe in those fumes. But with something this large, it just really isn't the most practical thing. So if this is something you're ever doing like I am, remember ventilation is key. I made sure to open up every door, every window I could, moved anything that could get messed up out of the area, put the cats away. Just make sure you're taking proper precautions. If you have a mask or gloves or anything like that, it's very important you wear them. I did have a mask during this process, but kind of forgot my gloves, which really wasn't the smartest thing for me. But enough of the safety tips. As you can see here, the first step is to prime everything in a solid black. Now, this may seem a little bit odd. We're landscaping, but we're painting everything in a black. And yeah, it does seem a little weird, but trust me, this is a crucial stage. Not only is this serving as a primer, but when we come back later, will really help with shadowing and just, adding that little bit of extra detail. When you do something like this, the name of the game is shadows. So basically, when I come in with that tan color, I kind of just spray it directly on the top. And when that falls onto this black paint, it kind of brings out that detail. Yeah, it's kind of a lot to explain. You'll see as I do it. And once those two main colors are introduced, I'll come back with some grays and darker browns. And finally, something I was very, very excited to get to, we're putting the track back on the layout. But this did kind of introduce some new, not really issues, but things I had to fix. For example, on the very large mine or ridge, well, I kind of built the ridge or overall mine structure just a little bit too large, and now the curve just didn't really sit flush when I introduced it. So I had to take the Dremel and kind of start to take very little bits of that apart. Wherever the contact was being made, just go ahead and remove it. But did come back after that with a little bit of clump foliage, and now you can't even tell I did it. I honestly think that adds a lot of detail. Now, speaking of detail, here's something we haven't seen before and that I'm overall still kind of new to, but will end up proving essential in the end, I'm sure. So you may remember from the last video, the track that Thomas falls into, or the little mine that's collapsed for engines to fall into on the layout. Well, essentially the way I made that was taking other Kato tracks apart and then, just kind of holding them together with the rail joiners, and that was it. They would often fall apart if an engine did fall into them, or just weren't really connected by anything. So we're going to solder those pieces all together, so now they're all one component, or at least the right side of the track is one component. The left connects to the actual layout. And there is that once it's introduced. I also decided to cut up some rail ties, which I do have to paint and come back later and kind of, put down in a better way, but that, ladies and gentlemen, is where we are now. Now, technically, the landscape is far, far from done. We need a lot of texture, we need a lot of plants, just there's quite a bit coming besides this, but at least we can start to see where things are going at this point, especially compared to when we started. At least now you can tell it's the pilot mine, or a mine in general. What was it? Last time it was kind of just, I don't even know how to describe this. So truth be told, even though it's not done and there is still a lot of money and a lot of time to be spent on this thing, Overall, I'm proud. This is something I'm, just excited to see come to life. And every little bit and stage that we've gone through overall has just been a blast. And I really can't wait to see what comes next. I'm thinking at this point we'll probably do some smaller rocks and then move on with the grass and static grass and stuff like that. But I do definitely think we need to finish the texture, so sand and rocks and that overall thing first. Really, I just wanted to run trains again, and it's gonna suck because this track is probably gonna have to come back up relatively soon, but again, I wanted to run trains again, and I owe you guys a running session already with Annie and Clarabelle, so you know what, with all that being said, this is where we are with the layout, this is what we've done, and with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, guys and gals, non-binary pals, let's go run some trains.
Either subscribe, donate, or get the fuck out.